It's about a bull, but we'll save that for later. For now, it's about a boy. Will, of course, is the boy, not Marcus. Do you know the movie starring Hugh Grant and Nicholas Hoult? Hugh plays a man named Will, 30-something, a wealthy heir with nothing to do and nothing to his credit, happily living life as a boy, an adolescent boy, permanently. Marcus, the 12-year-old, is the man, or at least he's trying to become a man, putting away childish things. Will's lies serve to move the plot forward, sometimes for better, but most often for worse. He hurts everyone, especially those who have already been hurt and are vulnerable, even when he thinks to be helpful, as when he buys some nice shoes for Marcus. Marcus, ever the mature one, gives himself up for his mother, trying to save his mother's life in a sad attempt to sing a sappy 70s love song. The crisis of the movie now asks, what will Will Freeman do? Will he give himself up to save Marcus? Does he have it in his character to do anything helpful at all? In other words, does Will have it in himself to put aside the boy to become a man? About a boy. Two boys are in focus today. One, the son of Hannah, who was barren before she was doubly blessed by the man of God. The other, the son of Mary, who was a virgin, blessed among women for all of history. Speaking of history, how's the church doing these days? Not just right here in this building, but regionally. How goes the preaching of the gospel, the making of disciples, the soldiers of God marching forth to do battle against evil? How are we doing nowadays? Hannah saw the people of God in the thick of a massive civil war, consuming each other with sword and spear to the extent that it almost exterminated an entire tribe. Poor little Benjamin. And they were under constant assault from the Philistines, who had iron. That's the equivalent of taking up arms with shotguns against guys with AR-15s. You're just not going to win. Since they couldn't muster the fight against their dreaded enemies, they turned the fight inward, and they died. The last thing they thought to do was to ask God to defeat their enemies for them. Well, Hannah did. She prayed, and God gave her Samuel. And she gave Samuel to God, and God gave Samuel back to the people of God, and he turned the tide against the deadly Philistines. But there was that bull. Never mind that for right now, because Mary saw something very similar in her days. The people of God were under assault, and boy, howdy, were they ever under assault. For hundreds of years, ever since Alexander came to conquer the whole world, followed by the Romans, who were not nearly so exciting as Alexander, who climbed over city walls to lead his armies from victory to victory. The Romans were content to starve you to death before slaughtering you systematically, facelessly, bureaucratically, building roads, highways, and bridges right to your front door so that they could ship legion after legion after legion of professionally trained and well-paid soldiers to continually knock at your front door. The Greeks and the Romans combined their threat into a deadly reality for anyone who dared express the notions of freedom. Thus, Mary sat in the hill country of Judea under the oppression of Greco-Roman rule. They had even sacrificed a pig on the altar of God. If you know anything about the laws of Moses, you know that a pig is the furthest thing from holy as there can be. So it was called the abomination of desolation. In this, the people of God lived. But we've got this bull See? Simeon held the boy in his arms, reciting our familiar Nunc Dimittis. There he is, the boy, destined to cause the rising and falling of many in Israel. In Israel? What about the Greco-Romans? The Pharisees were fighting the Sadducees. The Sadducees were fighting the scribes. The scribes were fighting the lawyers, and they were making alliances, and they were breaking alliances, and the last thing they were doing was serving the people. And the last thing they were doing was giving the people of God any hope in their God. Do you have hope in God? Are we surprised to see the church in decline all around us? We're bleeding people like a stuck pig. The church has always been suffering. A sword pierces Mary's soul when the bull is slaughtered. The boy Samuel, for whom the bull was slaughtered, grew up to be a man. And he tried to raise up men for the women, raise up a man to govern the people of God. At the peak of his powers, he flew into a rage when the man he raised up refused to do what a man's got to do. And he did the doing for the man instead. And then he wept for the man. And he wept for his people. And then he died. A bull was slaughtered for him. How could he do any more than try? A valiant man Samuel was, but he was only a shadow compared to Jesus. Turtle doves were slaughtered for him. We want people to come to church, right? And deep in our hearts, we want people to come to church for the right reasons, not just to help pay the expenses incurred for salaries and maintenance, but really to hear the word of God, a saving word, the same saving word we have, the word of God which sets us free. But what is that word? We have good music? We do. We are conservative? We are. We're a family? Indeed. All these things are wonderful ways to make the invitation. Finally, however, the word that saves is a hard word. The Son of God took on flesh and blood, like a bull, but more like a human, so that by his death he might destroy him who holds the power of death, that is, the devil. It's about a boy, but it's about that bull. That boy grew up to be the man every man aspires to be the man every woman desires to have. He is the joy of our desiring, the man who did what a man's got to do, who took our place under the wrath of God instead of a bull. Hard words, but pure gospel, as the saying continues. He set free those who all their lives were held in slavery by their fear of death. Philistines, Greeks, Romans, debt, guilt, sickness, and sin. The church has always suffered, has always bled people like a stuck pig. We are always living in the abomination of desolation, but we have a greater sacrifice, a sacrifice that washes away pig blood, bull blood, sheep blood, whatever blood. We have the sacrifice of the man, the Son of Man, Jesus, the Christ. The church is at her best when she suffers, because when she suffers, she bleeds. And when she bleeds Christ. She can do nothing to stop the bleeding. But now, here he is for you to have and to hold in your hand and in your heart, to consume him like no bull you've ever consumed. Pigs Lambs and bulls give satisfaction for a little while, bacon, chops, and roasts. Jesus gives us a satisfaction for all time, the salvation of your souls and the redemption of your bodies. Lord, now lettest thou thy servant depart in peace.